It's been a while since I did a ninjitsu video, so I'm going to do one. But the ninjitsu video I want to do, I want to I want to try and focus on not so much the espionage aspect, but the information gathering, the scouting work. I'm going to show you 5 different images. Very quickly, I'm going to give you a brief description before the images come up of what you're looking at. And then I'm going to ask you to give me a reference. And I'll put up a little section at the end of this video. Actually, I want to ask you to ask yourself, because it's more important that you know you can do this than I know you can do this, but if you want to give me the information, fine. The idea to it is this. I'm going to give you some information as to what's happening, because you won't have sound, you'll just have a picture. The pictures are mine. They were set up using little tiny army men. There's a little trick to this. This is something we were taught in the U.S. Army, so I'm also going to explain that as well. The trick we're talking about in the U.S. Army is what's called a salute report. It's actually there's another name for it. But ideally speaking, you're going to do what is called a salute report and a 5Ws report. A 5Ws report is actually called an after-action report, and the salute report is actually called a SITREP, a situation report. But it's done in salute format. So think of the word salute, and what you're dealing with is S, which stands for size, A, which is activity, L, location, U is uniform or unit insignia, T is time and date, E is equipment being used. Now, I want you to put things in that frame of a SITREP, or a situation report, a salute report. Okay, and what we're going to do here, I'm going to show these pictures very briefly. I'm going to offer a description before you see the images, so you understand what you're seeing, what you're hearing. And we're going to get into the subject matter of how you can look at the image very briefly, have a quick little shot of seeing something, and just a second's glance, and being able to record that information. Because part of what you will be doing as a shinobi, as a spy, as a scout, because it will require you to sneak in, penetrate the enemy's perimeter and such, you would have to get in, take a quick look, get away, and then put everything to paper, and then transfer that note, that letter in that paper form to whoever you're giving the information to. Your higher ups in your network, or your chain of command, or whatever, for your information gathering. This would include, this is something that all infantry soldiers were taught in basic training, so it's something we all did as far as, patrol and scouting, stuff like that. Now, the after action report, the 5Ws report, is it's very simple. It's who did it, what they did, where they did it, when they did it, why they did it. A lot of this will be information you will reapply to from the SITREP will be explained in the after action report. A lot of this information will be the same thing, so you'll have the same time, the same date, and it's just reapplying the information. But what I want you to do as an individual, if you so choose, as part of this exercise, I want you to get a pen and a piece of paper, and then I want you to pause the video, get you a pen and a piece of paper, and then I want you to come back and see the images for a brief second, and then I want you to fill things out in a salute format, followed by a 5Ws format. And the primary thing here is you're not going to be saying, I engaged the enemy and I killed people and all this other stuff. It's going to be, I observed, I seen, and you need to explain why, being a scout, you would observe, see things, and not directly engage that enemy. Sometimes this will involve numbers, sometimes it will not. Okay, so at this point in time, we're going to get to the training portion of this video. Okay, all you're seeing, well, all you're hearing is boots hitting the pavement. There's no noise as far as talking, no nothing, an occasional, you know, or and everything else is hand signals. So you're not looking at any sort of hearing any sort of auditory commands. You're just going to have a brief second for this picture, and then I'm going to put up a pause screen for a moment and give you time to look at to process what you had or what you had seen, and then describe it. Okay. Okay, same as before. You're not hearing any verbal commands. You're just seeing, hand signals, people pointing, directing people. Also, only going to be for a brief second. I want you to look at this image and tell me what is going on. Now, bear in mind, I realize this isn't set up in a mock urban environment the way it should, but we're going to assume this is an urban environment. So the only thing you are hearing is boots hitting the ground and the occasional movement and everything else. You fill out the rest of the salute report depicting this single image of what you see for a brief. Okay, now for this image, I'm going to give you a little bit more info because it's based on something you're doing. So you're going to have to actually include what I'm saying that you have done in your after action report. Now, having seen an enemy soldier standing about amongst the tree line, you have gotten closer to them with the intent of seeing what this lone individual is doing out at this position. As you've gotten close to their position, you have, in fact, realized there are more of the enemy soldiers, and that one person is actually pulling security for the other soldiers. I'm going to show you a very brief image of what they are doing, and again, salute report. You need to define the size, the activity, the location, uniform, time, and the equipment being used. And you're going to have a very brief second to absorb this and put in that information as best as you can remember. Now for this one, I'm going to make it slightly a little bit easy on you. Since most people don't know military tactics, what is happening, and I'm going to tell you, is three members of your force are being engaged by the enemy. This would be what would be considered in former military training as react contact. I'm going to let you describe the actions being taken. In this, you have a very short window of opportunity to look at this picture and to, again, go with your sit rep, your after action report, and to actually come up with a reason for why you would not come into seeing, three of your compatriots being attacked and killed in battle by the enemy, why you would not be coming into a system as a lone gunman yourself. Okay, so here's the image, and you can do the set rip and the after action. Okay, for this one, I'm going to give you a little bit more information. You have stumbled upon an enemy training camp. You have heard gunshots. You have heard people yelling and grunting and barking orders. For sake of argument, it's in a foreign language. You can't understand what they're saying. But you have to look at this image for a very brief second and tell me the type of training they are conducting. And this should be, again, in your sit rep and your after action report defining what you did, what was going on, everything else. So that's the information you have. Here's the image you got. Alright, if you noticed, in some cases I gave you longer with some images than I did with others. Now, it doesn't give you a lot of time to remember details. This is where you have to pay attention to details. There's several little tricks to doing this, which I'm going to explain. One of them is to take a mental snapshot. You see the image very briefly, and you visualize it in your head, and you try to remember and make it as detailed as possible inside your head. Another thing to this is allowing your subconscious mind to simply recall information. I really can't give you a good idea of a good means of training this or explaining how it works, because I really don't know, and I'm really not sure to such a degree that I can. But essentially, your mind recognizes details and associates things by recognizing those details without actually consciously processing the information. This is where instincts and intuition and such come from, because your mind starts to assemble and assess information, comparing it to past experiences, and it allows you to have these vibes, these feelings, where your mind is on a subconscious level associating something with danger or with some other previous situation, and you're recalling the details, and you actually can almost guess the number of things or what have you. Another way there's also the trick to counting it in groups using say 5s or 10s. It's a trick for counting that they use when doing inventory in stores. It's also a trick for counting when trying to count the number of objects and inventory you have while doing, logistics for, say, the arms room, or whatever you're dealing with at the time. Counting your beans, bullets, and band-aids, as it were, for supply logistics in the field. So the idea is you count things in groups of 5. 5, 10, 15, 20, or if you can actually assess by putting, 2 groups of 5 together, 10, 20, 30, 40, and counting it that way. Now, you don't know, I didn't tell you those tricks before you got into this video, so I'm going to give you a chance to watch it over again after me telling you these tricks to actually see what I'm talking about. The process to this, and one of the other tricks that can be done for that subconscious memory recall that I was mentioning, that you're allowing your subconscious mind to associate a number or associate a count in such a way that you can look at something and be able to essentially guesstimate the number without actually having to count it, but get the number right every time, is to you can use the army men. We did this in the army. The idea was to set up have someone else set up the little army men in a scenario, conducting something as if conducting an operation, and then running wind sprints, doing push-ups, whatever, pretending to be in a combat situation, go through a mock combat scenario of dry fire drills, get to a certain point, low crawl, 10, 15, 30 yards after having sprinted 50, and having to do, duck and cover drills to avoid enemy fire and react to contact drills and such. Low crawl to a certain point, try to maintain cover and concealment as best you can, even though the little plastic men can't see you, and get a look at it, and then try to recall that information to put it on your set rep or your after action report. Another trick done to this that was done to me as far as ninjitsu training was to take a bowl, a plate, whatever, and you put different objects on it. Then you cover them up with a towel. It's best to have someone else to put the objects on the plate, and what happens is they pull the object off the towel, or pull the towel off the plate. You get a brief picture of the objects, they throw the towel back on it, and then they commence with having you striking a punching bag or doing whatever drill, and then come back and ask you in detail the count of certain things or what was on the plate. At first it was very difficult. After a while it gets better to just numerically pick up the information. And the more you put stress on yourself to distract you from what's going on, the more it means that it's not so much a matter of concentration, it's a matter of relaxing and allowing your mind on the subconscious level to do what it already knows how to do, and not trying to consciously control. Because when you start trying to consciously control things, you start trying to calculate them and analyze them, and a lot of times it's just better to relax and let your mind go, and let instinct, let intuition, let your mind's subconscious ability to assess, associate, and analyze things and take over. So this is just a quick little drill that's put up here on the internet as a way for you to be able to learn something, to be able to apply it to not just your training as far as ninjitsu, as far as the espionage stuff. You can try it in scouting. It works for, grocery shopping. It's an interesting little way to train and condition your mind, and it's something that exists both within the military and within ninjitsu. Now, the reason why I went with the military situation report, the DOD, Department of Defense format for the situation report, and not the series of questions which you should be asking and analyzing as taught in Emoto Ryu Ninjitsu, is because I use both questions. However, the ninjitsu questions deal a lot with being able to assess a person's personality, whether or not you're talking about someone who is orderly and controlled, or sloppy and chaotic, whether you're talking about a person who is arrogant, whether you're talking about a person who is afraid, whether you're talking about a person who is cautious. A lot of the ninjitsu questions deal with trying to assess the mindset and the frame of mind of the commanding officer that you're observing when you're observing the enemy camp, and trying to get an understanding for this person. More professional soldiers have more discipline and than less professional soldiers or unprofessional soldiers. More professional leaders tend to run a looser strain, or tend to be a little bit looser on the way they control their men, because their men are already trained and proficient to a level that they don't need to be told what to do and micromanaged. Less professional leaders try to micromanage everything that goes on and control every little element, and not delegate responsibility to subordinates and subordinate leaders. So there's a lot of mental and psychological things that you have to be able to assess, which comes in ninjitsu, which I didn't include for the sake of this video.